Teachers have read it. They say there are no stupid questions. But what's the most stupid question a student has ever asked you? Also not a teacher, but when I was in high school in health class while going over reproduction, there was a fellow student who raised her hand and asked if you were sterile. Could you pass it on to your children? The whole class giggled and she, confused, said she was serious. She wanted to know if you're sterile, could you pass it on to your kids? The teacher, with a smile, said to her, okay, let's think about this. What does it mean to be sterile? She began answering, it means that you can't have KOHHHHH, followed by another round of laughter from the rest of the class. To her credit, they are finding that people conceived using IVF are having difficulty having children of their own as adults. So not completely a dumb question, depending if you mean completely sterile or unable to reproduce unassisted. At university I had a classmate that would often show up 20 minutes late to class. The first thing he did after sitting down was raise his hand to ask questions about what the professor had just said, question after question until he had caught up with the rest of the class. Absolutely infuriating. That's a bad professor who allowed that. In 7th grade science class during physical ed they were talking about fellatio. Mormon girl in class, wait, you can get an STD just from talking about fricking. I wouldn't call the question stupid. Just no exposure at all to the topic beforehand. I once projected a picture of the Earth onto the front whiteboard. A student asked, how do astronauts stand on a planet like that? Was an 8th grade student, being totally serious, not under any noticeable influence of illegal substances. The same way we all are standing on the moon right now. Not a teacher, but there's one I'll never forget. What? Einstein's dead? This was a GCSE class. 15-16-year-olds. 9th grade Ella, a few chapters into Of Mice and Men. What kind of work does George do on the farm? I'm not sure. Probably the same work that everyone else is doing. Oh, it must be hard for him to help out, since he's a mouse. Frick, read it. Not really a teacher, but I'm a federal budget analyst and had to train a new employee who had apparently been working in budgets for 20 years or so should have been able to quickly pick things up. She wasn't. When I finally got her on the right track with our year-end financial reports, I told her she was close but her numbers were off, so double check them. She responded with, well, wouldn't someone else just fix that? Oh no, that's exactly what you get paid to do, so you need to put the correct numbers in the report so we can publish it. What on earth would we do with almost correct financial reports? The next day she just couldn't figure it out, and I said, you're really close. It's probably just rounding, she said. Does it matter? How do you know when you should round it up or down? I said, yes it matters. Just use normal rounding rules. She asked what those are. I very slowly said, you know, 0.5 or higher your roundup. She had never been familiarized with that apparently. In the end I really felt like I would have been better off teaching a 3rd grader. While I was student teaching, I had a student ask where Texas was on the map I was projecting on the screen. The map was of China. So the map was zoomed in a bit to the east. The kid was just trying to help you find the safe house. At the college midterm, I had a guy comes up to me that I've never seen in class. He proceeded to ask me what his grade is. Checked the sheet. He never turned in a single piece of homework. No quizzes. Never attended a test. What did you think you'd have? You've got a solid F. When I was in high school, the same student asked, where is the Great Wall of China? Aren't the sun and moon the same thing? That guy with the Hitler mustache, did he win? Yes, Charlie Chaplin won us all. Sorry, I'm not a teacher, but this was a question my teacher asked a student in my philosophy class. Community college. Teacher, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, then it must be. Points at random student for an answer. Random student. Man, I have no idea. A witch. Ugh, this freaking kid. I'm sure everyone has one in their grade. The type that is told his answer is wrong but somehow won't accept it and defends his factually wrong answer with the weirdest bull's logic. It was the year that the game Fable came out and the slogan was for every decision, a million outcomes. This kid was in my 9th grade English class and we were learning about actual fables. This kid asks the teacher, doesn't the word fable mean for a single decision, there's a million outcomes? Cue everyone in the class slowly turning their heads to look at him. The teacher said no, a fable is a short story or tale used to establish or show ethics and morals, something along those lines, aka the actual meaning of the word fable. The kid goes, oh, well I think you're wrong cause there's this game that came out and in the commercials it says for every decision there's a million outcomes. The teacher and this kid literally argued about the meaning of the word fable for like half an hour in class and everyone's telling the kid he's wrong and he refuses to accept it because the commercial said otherwise. He didn't actually use the word otherwise. I am sure that it's out of his vocabulary range, but he refused to relent. Fricking Ryan. Shut the frick up. History teacher said Magna Carta and this one girl opens her mouth and says excuse me it's manga. I hope she thinks back on that and cringes a little. Had a pupil ask me if the sun they saw in America was the same as the sun we saw here in Scotland, and why was their sun so much warmer. People acting like knowing what the sun is, and that there's only one, requires any more than nursery level knowledge of astronomy. The kid was 15. Living in Scotland, this one isn't hard to believe. I teach martial arts to little kids. I had a kid ask me if he could punch his mom now. This is from before I was a teacher. I gave private lessons. A student who's generally smart, but lacks a lot of general knowledge, especially history and politics. Hitler comes up in an explanation. Hitler? Yeah, you know who Hitler is, right? Isn't that the guy the Jews worship? Bonus points. We're German. Private writing instructor. A couple of years ago, I had a student ask me if commas were real or imaginary. He was equally dubious about semicolons, which he referred to as imitation periods. He was 26 and very serious. Not a teacher, but a classmate of mine was genuinely surprised to learn of the existence of cocoa beans. He thought previously that chocolate came from brown cows. I mean, why else would Hershey's and stuff be called milk chocolate? We were in 10th grade at the time. My little sister, at age 14, believed taco meat came from taco cows and that it wasn't just seasoned ground beef. She legitimately believed there were cows who produced Mexican seasoned beef. Elementary student after leaving backpack on the bus. Someone should invent some sort of device that attaches a backpack to a person's body so they don't lose it. Most of the idiotic questions I get are always linked to history though I'm an English teacher. They have no idea about different time periods or a sense of centuries. So I get questions such as, why didn't Dickens just get on a plane? Was the internet not around then? Being the 1700s? Were the Victorians around when dinosaurs were? And these are 14-16-year-olds. It gets even harder for them when thinking about the few decades prior to their existence, i.e., the 50s 90s. I wonder if we are all like that a little when we're so young. Certainly not at those ages. 10th grade honors chemistry. Topic is states of matter. What would liquid ice be called? We're still not sure if he was making a joke about the short-lived icebreakers mints liquid ice because everyone was laughing too hard. Me. That's why the earth is round. Student. But Tyler Tequila said it's flat on Twitter. Isn't it? Me. Stunned silence. I'm a casual lecturer and have a young family so only work the hours I'm paid. Quite often I'll get a student not show for the entire semester then in the last week appear and ask why I can't teach them out of hours. There have been tears and complaints when I've basically said that if they'd shown up to class they'd know what they were doing and I have better things to do with my life than support lazy students. Not a teacher but a tutor and not really a question, but was trying to explain to one girl doing her GCSEs how the start of the word for the alkanes shows how many carbon atoms there are. For example, like octane has 8 and decane has 10 etc. Asked her how many pentane had. She didn't know. Asked her how many sides a pentagon has. She didn't know. Proceeded to blow her mind by drawing a pentagon. Turns out she had never come across the concept of a 5-sided shape before. It's only after entering computer science that it occurs to me how many people don't know even basic trigonometry, geometry or algebra. They always ask me why they would ever need to know it if they can get by without it. I always explain that it doesn't make it possible to live, just that it makes your life a fuckload easier. Not a teacher, but in 8th grade physical ed class, we had a box where students could submit questions anonymously. One day, the teacher read aloud one of the questions which asked, "My dad's dong is circumcised but mine is not. Does this mean he isn't my dad?" Yes, he believed circumcision was hereditary. Bless his heart. Those anonymous question boxes are so useful. Someone in my physical ed class wanted to know where the bone comes from. I'm so glad people had a way to get answers to this stuff pre-internet, or post-internet, but especially pre-internet. Not a teacher, but during high school, one of the girls in my history class asked our teacher who had won World War II. We were like 14 and had spent the last 3 months studying World War II. Bonus points. We told her Germany won and she believed us for a month till we took pity of her and explained that the Allies won. We convinced my friend that Germany had almost won the war, then France had come out of nowhere and take over the entire continent, thus causing the Cold War. A girl back in my grade 9 science class once asked what happens to the egg in the mom's stomach when the baby hatches. We were covering human reproduction and the reproductive cycle, and in Quebec physical ed is taught in elementary school, most of them. I taught my ex what a clitoris is, that she had one and its, as I understand it, function. This is a full-grown woman in her mid-20s with a child. Not a teacher, but in my freshman college class, one student asked our professor, "You know how it says all men are created equal? Well, that's not true, because like I'm good at hockey but some people aren't, and some people are good singers, so that's wrong, isn't it?" She didn't know how to answer that one, because she was stunned into silence. Equal, but not the same. My cousin is a teacher, and one day he had to teach a physical ed unit to the class. You know, the ones where everyone splits off into boy and girl groups so that they can put any question in a hat and have it answered anonymously. He is a guy, so he was answering the questions for the boys. So, he got some questions that were clearly looking for stupid answers, and threw them out. As usual, certain jokers were trying to get a rise out of him. Then he got a question that asked, "Why do you have to have an erection to frick a girl?" This one he couldn't avoid. He didn't know if it was serious or not, so he decided he would have to answer it. He said, "You know how you have the plastic tip on the end of your shoelaces to get it into the hole? It is kind of like that." This may be the greatest metaphor I ever personally heard of. Thank you for listening. While discussing the Bill of Rights, if we got the right to bear arms, why can't we wear tank tops in school? Brilliant. Gun show. I'm not a teacher, but I'm a librarian archivist and I used to work at a university. One time a student came in while I was doing reference and he was waiting to pick up a print job or something, so he started asking me questions to pass the time. Which is cool, except it very quickly devolved into him flagrantly trying to impress hit on me. I have no idea why. Basically, the dumbest question a student ever asked me was, complete with what I'm sure were his best bedroom eyes. "So have you ever read The Art of Seduction?" Except it very quickly devolved into him flagrantly trying to impress hit on me. I have no idea why. I got this one. "You're cute." As an older student going to college, one thing stands out for me. We were discussing the coastal flooding attributed to the melting of the ice caps, and the kid asked the professor what the big deal was. The land was lifting as fast as the sea was rising anyway. The professor stopped to digest that for a moment. The kid went on to say that the flooding wasn't a worry because all of the world's coastlines were constantly lifting up out of the ocean depths. Not a teacher, but I once heard a student say, "You actually believe in evolution? So you think monkeys just decided not to turn into people?" to another student, and the teacher basically looked into the camera like he was on The Office, so to speak. The "I don't actually understand evolution but clearly it can't be true" starter pack. We were getting ready for a field trip in a class of about 20. I make the announcement, "We're leaving in about 10 minutes, go to the bathroom, fill up your water bottles." Everyone is getting ready and standing around, and one of my students comes up to me in a panic, "Excuse me, have we left yet?" We all look around at everyone standing by the door or by their desks. No, I don't think we've left yet. Good grief. When reading, "Go to the bathroom, fill up your water bottles," I instantly feared that a student might have filled their water bottle with water from the toilet bowl. I remember when I was a little kid my teacher said X is the greatest invention since the wheel, and I asked what's the wheel. He got really mad and shouted at me for a while because he thought I was taking the pee. I knew what a wheel was, but the way he said it just didn't register to my kiddie brain, and I instantly assumed he was talking about some completely different thing also called the wheel. Kid in my 10th grade biology class takes the cake for me. We were going over chromosomes, talking about the effects of an extra chromosome, Down syndrome, and this kid looks confused as heck, gears turning like mad in his head. Finally he raises his hand. With the extra chromosome, shouldn't they be, like, superheroes? I love this one. High school, me, please sign the attendance sheet next to your name, then pass it along. A couple minutes later, student calls out, everybody's writing letters next to their name. How am I supposed to know what letters to write? Other student, your name. Everyone's writing their names. Not a teacher. We were assigned classwork in a computer class and another classmate asked if we had to do the classwork. The teacher responded, you know how at the beginning of the course I said there was no such thing as a stupid question? That's a stupid question. Not a teacher, but I was in class with someone who asked a really stupid question. This one girl in my physical science class asked why we tore down the land bridge that allowed ancient peoples to travel to America. To stop illegal immigrants. Duh. One of my professors at my university was showing a picture of the United States and one of his students asked him how do people climb those big walls that go around every state? He had to explain that they were just showing where the state borders are on the map. My parents used to teach identical 6th grade science curriculum at 2 different schools and grade papers at home together. They would read the dumbest answers aloud, one-upping each other until they had a winner. The only answer I remember clearly was to the question, what is the smallest thing in the universe? One kid answered, about the size of 2 potatoes. If you drink too much Gatorade and fill up to here, points a throat, do you drown? You know there's stuff in your body and you're not just a hollow tank. Right? Not really a question, but an answer to a question. I was teaching a world history course to 10th graders and asked the question what does AD mean? A couple kids took a shot, but were wrong, and a girl who fit the absolute textbook definition of a stereotypical cheerleader raised her hand and answered as confidently as someone would answer that the sky is blue or grass is green with, after dinosaurs. Not a teacher but my stepmother was. 3rd grader asked her if there was really a president named Harry Balls. Poor kid got punked hard on that one. We still laugh about it. Not a teacher, but I had a girl in a few of my classes in high school that had some real WTF moments. 1. She once asked our geography teacher how the water got back to the top of a waterfall. 2. When overhearing my friend getting scolded for smoking, the teacher had said that his father quit cold turkey. She asked him how his father got addicted to turkey in the first place. 3. In history we were being taught about corporal punishment and the term lashes came up. She didn't understand what was so severe about eyelashes being pulled out. She was pretty hot. She once asked our geography teacher how the water got back to the top of a waterfall. I mean, a complete understanding of this question arguably requires some serious thinking about thermodynamics. The fact that water flowing downhill is free energy confused our civilization for a long time. My brother is a teacher and told me of an instance where several students insisted that a map of their home state was a map of the USA. I'm not a teacher but a girl in my class was convinced that Saturn was the biggest planet in the solar system. She asked the teacher and the teacher said that Jupiter was the biggest. This girl then proceeded to insist she was correct and wouldn't look at any charts we showed her. A real piece of work. That one. That's better than just not knowing your planets. I was on a high school academic team and ended up being the only one in a room of idiots that knew more than 3 planets, not to mention the order of them. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.